Hey my friends, the Pittsburgh Steelers opened their preseason with a 28-9 victory over the Green Bay Packers, but the final score does not tell the full story of what happened in this game. The biggest storyline coming out of Pittsburgh is the performance of rookie quarterback Drew Allar, who entered the game in the third quarter and immediately changed the entire direction of the offense. When Allar stepped onto the field, the Steelers were actually trailing 9-7. From that point forward, everything changed. Allar led 3 consecutive touchdown drives and finished his preseason debut completing 10 of 13 passes for 154 yards, with 2 passing touchdowns and another touchdown on the ground. That is an impressive first appearance, but there is an important detail Steelers fans need to keep in mind before getting too far ahead of themselves. Allar was facing Green Bay's 3rd and 4th string players. So no, this one performance does not mean Pittsburgh has suddenly found its next franchise quarterback, but that does not make what happened any less encouraging. Coming into this game, the biggest question surrounding Allar was not necessarily whether he could put up numbers against backup defenders. The real question was whether the development process was starting to show on the field. How would his footwork look? Would his accuracy be improved? Would he process the defense faster? Would he show better pocket presence? And perhaps most importantly, would he be willing and able to push the football down the field? The answer to those questions was extremely encouraging. Allar showed the ability to attack all 3 levels of the field, and some of his downfield throws were among the most impressive plays of the night. His first preseason pass as a Steeler nearly became a touchdown as he connected with Kaleb Johnson on a 75-yard play. The ball was placed perfectly in stride, allowing Johnson to use his speed and gain significant yards after the catch. That play immediately gave Steelers fans something to pay attention to, but Allar did not stop there. He showed that he could get the football out quickly at the top of his drop, especially in the red zone. He also displayed some playmaking ability when the structure of the play broke down, while adding several impressive touch throws down the field. For a young quarterback making his first preseason appearance, it was difficult to ask for a better first impression, and that is where this becomes especially interesting for the Steelers. The team does not need Allar to become its starting quarterback right now. The expectation discussed in the source is that he is a developmental player who is not expected to play this season. That gives Pittsburgh time to work with him, improve the details of his game, and see whether he can eventually become part of the team's long-term plan. If this first preseason performance is any indication, there may already be signs that the development process is moving in the right direction. The areas that were questioned about Allar during his college career appeared much cleaner in this game. His footwork looked improved, his mental processing appeared sharper, and his accuracy was one of the most encouraging parts of the performance. Instead of simply relying on short, safe throws, he showed confidence pushing the ball downfield and putting it in positions where his receivers could make plays. Again, the level of competition matters. Steelers fans should not treat one preseason performance against backups as proof that Allar is ready to take over an NFL offense, but development is about progress, and this was the kind of progress Pittsburgh wanted to see. There was another quarterback who deserves attention as well, Will Howard. Howard played well and gave the Steelers a very solid performance before Allar took over. He led a strong 2-minute touchdown drive, made several good throws, and consistently got the football out on time. He was accurate and looked comfortable operating the offense. In fact, the performance was good enough to keep the competition for the backup quarterback position interesting. The source makes it clear that Howard did not play poorly. Quite the opposite. He may have actually played better than Mason Rudolph in this particular game, and there is also the opinion that Howard has performed better than Rudolph during training camp. But the problem for Howard is that playing well may not be enough. The Steelers clearly know what Mason Rudolph can provide during the regular season, and the organization appears to value that experience. That leaves Howard in a difficult position. If Pittsburgh decides to keep only 2 quarterbacks behind the scenes, Howard may need to continue producing at a very high level throughout the preseason to force the team's hand. Tonight he did not hurt his chances, but he also did not produce the kind of explosive performance that would completely separate him from the competition. That distinction is important because Allar's performance naturally drew much of the attention away from everyone else. But the rookie quarterback was not the only Steelers player who made a strong impression. Kaleb Johnson was another major winner from the night. He finished with only 2 receptions, but those 2 catches produced 79 yards and a touchdown. His 75-yard reception from Allar nearly became a touchdown, and later he made another impressive play by creating separation over the middle on 3rd down. He also showed the ability to make defenders miss in space, something that could become particularly important if Pittsburgh needs him to contribute as a returner or receiver during the season. Jeremy Bernard also delivered a strong performance. He was the top wide receiver for the first-team offense and developed a clear connection with Mason Rudolph. Bernard finished with 4 catches for 51 yards, averaging 12.8 yards per reception. He showed reliable hands, good route running, and the ability to make plays after the catch. There was even a potential 5th reception that could have resulted in a touchdown, but he was unable to get both feet in bounds. That is one of those small details young players have to adjust to at the professional level, but overall, it was a very positive first impression. Sante Samuel Jr. also continued to show why he has been receiving attention throughout training camp. He played both outside and in the slot and recorded multiple pass breakups during his time with the first-team defense. With Joey Porter Jr. still dealing with his situation, Samuel's versatility becomes even more valuable. The ability to move between positions gives Pittsburgh another option if injuries affect the cornerback room, and that versatility is not just something Steelers fans have heard about in practice. It carried over into the game. Lou Nichols also had a productive night, showing good vision and the ability to find the correct running lanes. He scored a touchdown and nearly had another one before it was brought back. His preseason success continues to make him a player worth watching as Pittsburgh works through its roster decisions. Robert Taney was another player who stood out, particularly because of his connection with the young quarterbacks. He played mostly with Will Heyward and made multiple receptions. One of the better throws of Howard's night came when he stepped up and found Taney attacking the seam against a cover 2 look. The pass reached him near the goal line and demonstrated the kind of chemistry that has reportedly been developing during camp. Gabriel Rubio also made his presence felt at nose tackle. He showed strength against the run, including a good block-shedding play that resulted in a tackle, and he did a solid job holding the line of scrimmage. For a player who was questioned when Pittsburgh selected him, this kind of performance is exactly what he needs to build momentum as a potential rotational depth piece. Jamin Davis added multiple sacks while working from the edge, continuing his transition from linebacker to edge player. With the Steelers' primary group of outside linebackers appearing relatively established, Davis is fighting for an opportunity to remain with the team, potentially through the practice squad. Performances like this can help his case. Kyler Baugh also finished the game strongly, recording a couple of sacks late in the 4th quarter and putting himself a little closer to another opportunity with Pittsburgh. But while there were plenty of positives, there were also some warning signs that Steelers fans should not ignore. Kaleb Johnson had a particularly difficult night. He received only 2 carries and gained just 3 yards. In a preseason game where players fighting for roster spots need opportunities to show what they can do, the limited workload is notable. It is impossible to know exactly what the Steelers coaching staff thinks based on one game, but the lack of opportunities certainly does not make Johnson's situation look encouraging. If Pittsburgh truly wanted to give him an extended opportunity to prove himself, this would have been the kind of game where a heavy workload could have provided that chance. Eli Heidenreich also needed a stronger performance. He received 9 carries, but averaged only 2.2 yards per attempt. He was not necessarily terrible, but he did not provide the kind of explosive performance that could force his way onto the 53-man roster. At this point, the practice squad appears to be a more realistic path for him, unless he can make a much stronger impression in the remaining preseason games. And then there is the issue that could concern Steelers fans the most: penalties. The Steelers were sloppy early, and the special teams unit was especially problematic. There were several penalties involving special teams, including personal fouls and holding calls. That is something Mike McCarthy has to get under control before the regular season begins. A preseason game is exactly when a team should be correcting these mistakes. Pittsburgh cannot afford to carry this level of sloppiness into meaningful games. Still, when everything is considered, the Steelers walked away with a convincing 28-9 victory, and more importantly, a number of young players gave the coaching staff something positive to evaluate. But one player clearly stole the night, and now the question becomes much bigger than what Drew Allar did against Green Bay. If Allar continues to show improved footwork, accuracy, processing, pocket awareness, and the confidence to attack downfield in the next preseason games, could this performance be the beginning of something much bigger for the Steelers Steelers' long-term quarterback plan, and that is exactly why the next preseason game becomes so important for Drew Allar. The Steelers do not need to make any dramatic decisions based on one night, and nobody should pretend that a strong performance against backup defenders automatically makes a quarterback a franchise player. But what Allar showed was enough to make his development one of the most fascinating stories to follow from now on. The encouraging part is that his performance was not simply about throwing a couple of touchdowns. It was about how he operated the offense. He looked decisive. He got the ball out quickly. He showed confidence attacking the field vertically, and he demonstrated the ability to make plays when things did not develop exactly as planned. For a developmental quarterback, those details matter. The first pass to Kaleb Johnson was a perfect example. Allar did not just complete a short throw and let the receiver do all the work. He delivered the ball downfield and gave Johnson an opportunity to run after the catch. The result was a 75-yard play that immediately showed the kind of arm talent and downfield confidence Pittsburgh wants to see from him. Then came the red zone execution. Allar was quick with his decisions and showed the ability to make plays with his legs when necessary. He eventually finished one of those drives himself, adding a rushing touchdown to the 2 touchdown passes he would throw later. That sequence is what made his debut so memorable. 3 straight touchdown drives after entering the game, with Pittsburgh trailing 9-7, is exactly the kind of momentum-changing performance that gets people talking. But while Allar deserves the attention, Steelers fans should not overlook the bigger picture. Pittsburgh received encouraging performances from multiple quarterbacks, and that creates an interesting situation for Mike McCarthy and the coaching